Consider supporting ArchaeoSoup on Patreon for as little as $1 per month. Link available in the video description. Thank you.
Where you get those papers, all those weepers, how they hypnotize. Where did you get those eyes? Where did you get those?
Hello and welcome back to another Archaeologist's Eye. In this series you are challenged to think like an archaeologist, to see the world like this archaeologist does at the very least. And today's episode is the solution to the puzzle that I previously presented in the previous episode. So please do check that out before you watch this video if you haven't already seen it, because there's something I think very interesting about the Santa cam. This toy slash prop slash invocation is something that I find fascinating and a little bit creepy. After all, you wouldn't want anyone else's camera in your child's bedroom, would you? It's an oddity, but I think it goes to the core of the specific function of certain artifacts and objects in ancient cultures. And this immediately brought to my mind a very specific instance of something being in the house that's there partly to observe you and to respond to your behaviour. Now, there's been some conversation back and forth on Facebook and a comment or two on the video in terms of the puzzle. But my specific answer to this was the notion of Roman household gods, and specifically lares. I think it's lares or lares. These are entities who are responsible for looking after the well-being and the function of specific arenas. So, for example, you may have a lar who is responsible for the sea or specific routes along a canal, for example, or maybe a specific field, or, for example, a house or a household. Now, often these are part of a small pantheon, a mini pantheon of household gods in a Roman home. And often, in addition to lares, you'd also have, for example, genius, spelt genius actually, a representation of the divine spark of members of the family, i.e. the living divinity of individuals in the family would be part of the shrine, along with also family favourite gods. So maybe if you are a trader with your own stall in the market, you might have a little statue of Mercury, for example, in amongst your household gods. This would be in a little shrine or an alcove somewhere in the house, and the lares in particular would be there to observe your behaviour. If you fail to acknowledge the household gods and the lares specifically, then your desires, wants and needs were less likely to be satisfied. And in fact, misfortune may even come upon you if you were negligent in your duties. This also applies actually to your role in the family, because there's also an aspect of the household god's shrine that's also tied in directly to ancestors and ancestor worship. In particular, the pater familias, the father of the family, would have to live up to the reputation and the honour, in fact, the honour that's been bestowed upon the family by making sure that everyone in the house is behaving according to carefully constructed social rules and norms. Now, interestingly, in the Roman world, for much of the Roman time, I suppose, because obviously we're talking about hundreds, if not, basically 1,000 years. For much of that time, it was not necessarily a similar set of moral codes that we might recognize and even try to represent and reproduce in our lives now, in like a Western sort of Christian or post-Christian kind of world. For example, the concept of shame wasn't necessarily important to Romans, to pagan Romans in particular, Because actually shame wasn't the problem, it was all about honour. So for example, if you stole something, the issue would be if you got caught. Now that's not to say that stealing was fully acceptable, but it's not necessarily the issue. It's in so much as the gods aren't watching you going, oh, you stole something, I'm going to make a note of that and you'll be punished at some point. It's more a case of if other people found out, if dishonour is brought upon your family because of your thievery, then you are bringing shame upon the household indirectly, if you see what I mean. You are bringing dishonour, and you are displeasing those household gods. So it's not directly about behaviour in the same way as we might think of, for example, Santa, or indeed the Santa Cam, as observing good and bad behaviour. In this instance, this is kind of like Santa Cam going, well, you did steal the cookie, but no one saw you do it. So I suppose you still have your honour intact. It's a very specific Roman concept of good and bad. The Lares and actually all the household gods would act as witnesses to key events in the house, births, marriages and deaths, the key events in our lives to this day, in fact. And they would, in that sense, be I suppose you can also think of it almost like a family pet as well, in the same way that I say goodbye to Indy as I leave the house. Indeed, as I leave the house around 3 o'clock this afternoon, I've got a meeting to go to. I'll be saying bye-bye. I'll be giving you a little bit of a kiss and a stroke. You would interact with the household gods in that way as well. You would recognise them when you came into the room, when you were, not to say when you were leaving and coming back, but they would have that sort of casual, ongoing relationship as well with family life, and in particular with, for example, children in the family. And all in all, it's a religious hub for a Roman pagan family. The household gods, and in particular the Lares, are there. They're always there. They're always watching, and you have to be aware of that. You better watch out. You better not get caught. I think that would probably be the Roman version of that song. Better not dishonour your family this Saturnalia, or else. Hopefully this has been interesting. It's always, I think, a wonderful jumping off point to begin with something like this, and have an excuse, frankly, to go into something that's very specific. That's also quite hard to find other ways to talk about from, for example, the Roman world. And in that sense, Santa Cam is wonderful, wonderfully weird, wonderfully creepy, wonderfully specific, and I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it here in the office because this is essentially a household god for the 21st century. That said, though, I wonder what that makes the elf on a shelf. I suppose the elf on the shelf is a variant of that, isn't it? So maybe this with the elf on the shelf would be like a shrine, as it were, to behaviour, bringing favour upon the family, and hopefully getting good presents on Christmas morning. Thank you for watching, guys. As ever, until next time, do take care, and I look forward to sharing with you this year's Christmas special, which has a reindeer theme, shall we say. I'll leave it there. You'll have to watch to get the full story. Until then, take care. Bye bye.